So to continue the analyzing of transaction and see how would we do that using the the T accounts. So let's take again this exercise which I just presented in the analyzing of transaction, which is slide 9 on your PowerPoints. So it says that on July 1st, paid advertising expense of $275. So what we'll do here is that we said paid advertising expense. So I'm just going to put an account which is called cash, and usually the cash account is a bit larger than any other account, and then I'm going to have here an expense account which is called advertising expense. Okay, so these are the two accounts involved, paid advertising expense. So when we pay, we said that cash, which is an asset, decreased by 275, and cash is debit in nature, decreases, so it will go in the debit side here, and we are going to write here 275, and that was on July 1st. Advertising expense is an expense, debit in nature, it increased, so it's going to be debit. So on July 1st, we have 275. So now you see that the transaction has a debit and credit, which is equal. Now, performing services for customers and received cash of 3,000. So we performed service, received cash of 3,000. So cash, which is debit, so cash is an asset, which is debit, it increased, so it's going to be debit. So that's on the 3rd of July, and we have here in the debit side 3,000. No problem if you put it on the same line. Then, why did we get this money? Because we performed services, so now we have revenue. So service revenue is credit. It increased or decreased. In this case, we made revenue, so it increased. So it's going to be of the same nature, so it's going to be credit. So on 3rd of July, we have here 3,000. Again, this is 3,000, and that's 3,000 debit and credit equal. July 5th, purchase supplies on account for 450. So we purchase supplies and on account. So supplies are assets. So here's the supplies, and we purchase supplies for 450. So supplies are assets, debit in nature, increased, so they're going to be of the same nature, so they're going to be debit for 450, and this happened on 5th of July. And on account means that we didn't pay yet. So here's an accounts payable, and it is a liability. It is credit in nature. It increased because we didn't have any liabilities. Now we have. So since it is credit, it will increase by its same nature, so it will be credit. So on the 5th of July, we have here 450. Still, the debit is equal to the credit. You must check that after each transaction. On July 9th, received cash of 1,200 from credit customers on account. So we received cash of 1,200. So 1,200. Cash increased, so cash is an asset, it increased, this debit in nature, so it's going to be debit for 1,200. And then that's on the 9th of July. So why did we receive this cash? Because we had account receivable. The account receivable had a balance before, whatever it is. Now we're collecting 1,200. So account receivable is an asset, which is debit. It decreased, so it will take the opposite nature, which is credit. So here we have the 1,200, and that's on 9th of July. On the 12th of July, paid 900 on accounts payable. So we paid 900. Okay, so paying, cash decreases, cash is an asset, debit in nature decreases, so it becomes credit. So here you have the 900, and that's on the 12th of July. What happens with the accounts payable? The accounts payable is a liability. It is credit. When it decreases, it takes the opposite nature, which is debit. So here you have the 900. 12th of July. On the 17th of July, performed service on account. So we said that accounts receivable in this case. So we performed service on account. So account receivable, which is an asset, it increases. So it's going to be debit because assets are debit and increase by the same nature. So we have here the 2,800 on the 17th. And revenue also is credit. It increases, it becomes credit. because it's the same nature, so 2,800. And if you know one side of the transaction, then the other account must be the other side. So the problem here is that if you look at those accounts, what if the owner told you, why did I pay this 900? From where would you know? Don't imagine that it is one page like that in real life. It will be, if it is manual, it will be like a whole book or a booklet that has several pages in it, maybe hundreds of pages. So you'll have to look in each page searching for this 900. So it would be like a disaster. This is one thing. The other thing is that when you have to copy, to enter the entries here, like this 900 and this 900, that's very neat numbers. But what if it is 245 and 235, and then the total of it is going to another account? In this case, you might get lost and you might not be really sure that everything balances. So in order to make sure that everything balances, and to make sure why did we do this, and write some explanation, because you don't have any place to write explanation in the account, so we would do something which is called the journal. And the journal will record all the transaction which happened, and we'll keep it chronologically, which means according to date. So what happens first is written first. So the first column is the date, and then you have the account, and then you have the debits, and then you have the credits. So whenever it says that paid advertising expense for 275, all what you'll do is go on July 1st, and then you're going to write paid advertising expense for 275. So this is, you have the advertising expense. It is an expense. It is debit in nature. It increases. So you'll write here advertising expense. And then you put in the debit 275. And the cash is an asset which decreased, so it will be credit accordingly. So always make sure that you start with the debit account and then follow it up with the credit account. Do not start with the credit, it will be wrong. And also see that I left here a finger space between the date column and the cash, so that even if you didn't look at this side at all, you know which account is debit and which is credit. And then here we're going to write that we paid for advertising expense expense to this customer by this check number, whatever you're going to write here, full explanation so that you can know. And usually there is here a small column which is called the reference number. So later on, so we're going to start by recording in this journal, and then we're going to say, okay, advertising expense has debit 275. So we'll go back to the ledger as if this didn't happen at all. So we didn't write anything in those ledgers. So it would be like empty here. So we're going to say, okay, 275, we got it from here to the ledger, and this is what we call posting. So it will be here 7. And then you're going to return back here, and either to make a tick saying that you posted it already, so this is the posting, or sometimes you'll have here an account number. So this could be maybe 56, account number 56, or 560, let it be. So you'll go back here and write 560. And you might write here that this happened in page 1 in the ledger, in the journal. So you could say that this is page 1 of the journal. So if the owner came and told you, okay, why did we have this 275, you'll tell him, okay, just a minute, you'll go to page 1 in the journal, and you'll say, yes, here it is, because we paid advertising expense, and then you have to mention all what you have written here before, or wrote here before. And the same thing for cash. So cash is credit, so you'll go there and add here the cash. So that's posting. So you start with the journal, and then post it to the ledger. So the journal serves that it keeps a chronological record, and it will show you that all the debits here are equal to all the credits. I'll start explaining in another video how to record in the journal.